Are you comfortable? Have a little wriggle and get yourself just right. There we go. Tonight, we're going somewhere special. Well, we're not actually going anywhere. You're staying right where you are, all cozy and warm. But in your mind, tonight, we're going to talk about aeroplanes. And airports. And what it would feel like to look out of a tiny oval window and see the whole world spread out below you, like a map that someone left on the floor. Has anyone ever taken you to the airport? Or have you been on a plane before? Even if you haven't, by the time this story is finished, you'll know all sorts of things. Things about how airplanes stay up in the sky. Things about the very first flight ever. Things about what's happening behind the walls of an airport that you'd never normally see. Take a slow breath, in and out. Are you ready? Good, let's begin. This is the question that a lot of grown-ups can't answer properly. But it's not that complicated, really. It just takes a little thinking. You know how, when you put your hand out of a car window, the air pushes it? If you tilt your hand flat, it goes up. If you tilt it down, it gets pushed down. The faster the car goes, the stronger the push. That's actually the beginning of understanding how a plane flies. An aeroplane's wings are a special shape. If you looked at a wing from the side, a cross section, like cutting through a wing like a slice of bread, you'd see something interesting. The top of the wing curves upward, like a gentle hill. The bottom is flatter. When the plane moves forward, air flows over and under the wing at the same time. But because of the curved top, the air going over the top has to travel a longer distance than the air going underneath. And air that has to travel faster creates lower pressure. Lower pressure on top, higher pressure on the bottom. And that difference in pressure pushes the wing upward. That upward push has a name. It's called lift. The faster the plane moves, the more lift the wings create. And once there's enough lift, once the wings are pushing upward with more force than the plane weighs, the plane rises up into the sky. Isn't that wonderful? The plane doesn't fight gravity exactly. It uses the air. It finds a way to make the air do the work. Big commercial planes, the kind you might go on holiday in, have wings that are enormous. But the physics is the same as your hand out the car window. Shape, speed, and air. Now, let's go back in time. Back to a cold December morning in 1903. The place is called Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, in America. It's a stretch of open beach. The wind is blowing in off the sea. Two brothers are there. Their names are Orville and Wilbur Wright. They're bicycle mechanics from Ohio. They don't have university degrees. They don't have government funding. They have a workshop, a lot of patience, and a very deep curiosity about flying. For years, they'd been watching birds, studying how birds tilt and twist their wings to turn, to balance, to glide. They built gliders and tested them on the sand dunes. They kept notes. They made adjustments. They failed and tried again, and failed differently, and tried again. And on the morning of the 17th of December, 1903, Orville climbed onto their latest machine. A fragile-looking thing, wood, canvas, wire, and a small petrol engine they'd built themselves. It was called the Flyer. The engine started. The plane moved forward along a wooden rail they'd laid on the beach. And then it left the ground. Orville flew for 12 seconds. 12 seconds. And he covered about 37 meters, roughly the length of a tennis court. It wasn't far. It wasn't fast. But no engine-powered machine carrying a human being had ever flown before. In those 12 seconds, everything changed. By the end of that same day, Wilbur flew for 59 seconds and covered nearly 300 meters. They sent a telegram to their sister back home. It said, "Success." Now let me tell you about airports. If you've ever been to one, you might remember it as a big, slightly confusing building full of shops and moving walkways and people wheeling suitcases in all directions. But airports are so much more than that. They're cities, really. Some of them are the size of small towns. Hartsfield, Jackson. Atlanta International Airport in the United States is the busiest airport in the world. On a single day, it handles around 2,500 flights. That's more than one flight every minute for the entire day without stopping. Dubai International Airport handles over 90 million passengers every year. 90 million. If every one of those passengers walked past you, it would take about 3 years for them all to go by. But the part that most passengers never see is what makes airports truly extraordinary. Underneath a large airport, there are tunnels and conveyor systems for luggage. When you drop your suitcase at check-in, it goes on a belt, gets a barcode scanned, and then travels through what is essentially an underground railway. Miles of conveyor belts, sorting machines, and scanners, until it arrives at the right aircraft. At a busy airport, this system sorts thousands of bags every hour. The bags are weighed, screened for security, and routed to the right place, mostly without anyone touching them. There are fuel depots underground too, Aircraft get refueled, not from a petrol pump, but from a hose that connects directly to an underground fuel supply. A large jumbo jet holds up to 240,000 liters of fuel. That's about the same as filling up a swimming pool. And then there are the people who work at airports. Hundreds of them for every flight that departs. Air traffic controllers, baggage handlers, fuel technicians, caterers loading food onto the planes, cleaners, engineers checking the engines, the cabin crew, the pilots, the gate staff. When you sit down in your seat on a plane, dozens of people have worked to get that flight ready. You just don't see most of them. Let's talk about pilots. To become a pilot for a big airline, you need years of training. It typically starts with learning to fly in a small single-engine plane, the kind with one propeller at the front, seats for maybe 4 people. You learn the basics, how to take off, how to navigate, how to land. What to do if things go wrong. Then you do more advanced training. Multi-engine aircraft. Instrument flying. Which means learning to fly using only the instruments in front of you without being able to see out of the windows. Because sometimes in cloud and fog and rain, that's exactly what you have to do. By the time a pilot gets their first job at an airline, they've usually done hundreds or even thousands of hours of flying. And then they keep learning. Every year, airline pilots have to pass simulator tests, flying through simulated emergencies, demonstrating that they still know exactly what to do. The cockpit of a modern airliner is a remarkable place. It's covered in screens, dials, switches, and buttons. There are systems monitoring the engines, the fuel, the pressure, the temperature, the navigation, the weather radar, the communications. But here's something interesting. For much of a long flight, the pilots aren't actually manually flying the plane. They've handed control to the autopilot, a computer system that keeps the plane on course, at the right altitude, at the right speed. The pilot flying is a combination of human skill and careful automation. The two work together. And the pilot and co-pilot, the two people sitting at the front, always eat different meals. There's a rule about this. If one of them gets food poisoning, the other one still has to be able to fly the plane. So they always eat different things, just in case. That fact makes me smile every time. Here's something that I think is genuinely amazing, and it doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Cruising altitude for a big jet airliner is typically about 10 to 12 kilometers above the ground. 35,000 feet, as the pilots would say. At that altitude, the outside air temperature is around minus 50 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees below zero. And the air up there is so thin that without supplemental oxygen, You'd lose consciousness in minutes. But inside the cabin, it's warm, around 20 degrees usually, and you breathe perfectly normally. How? The aircraft fuselage, the big tube-shaped body of the plane, is built to be pressurized. It's like a sealed container. The walls are thick and strong enough to hold a pressure inside that's much higher than the outside air. The air inside is pumped in and regulated so it stays comfortable. Some of that air is actually bled off the engines. Hot, compressed air from the jet engines is cooled and mixed and fed into the cabin. The same engines that fly you through the sky are also breathing for you. The cabin pressure is kept at roughly what you'd experience at about 2,000 meters above sea level, a bit like being in the mountains. Not quite sea level, but comfortable. Your ears might pop a little during climbing and descent as the pressure changes. That's normal. That's just your ears equalizing to the new pressure. The windows are small and oval shaped for a reason too. In the early days of jet aviation, some planes had square windows. Square windows have corners, and corners concentrate stress. At high altitude, with the pressurized cabin, those windows cracked, with catastrophic results. The investigation led directly to the rounded oval windows every plane has had ever since. Round shapes distribute stress evenly. There are no weak points at the corners. It's a lesson that was learned the hard way, and now it's just the shape of every plane window you've ever looked out of. Landing is perhaps the most skill-intensive part of flying. The approach to a runway begins many miles out. The plane descends gradually, a long, gentle slope down through the sky. Air traffic control is watching every aircraft on radar, giving instructions, spacing them out so they arrive at the runway one at a time, each one following safely behind the last. The pilots slow the aircraft. Flaps extend from the back of the wings. These increase the wing's lift at slower speeds, which means the plane can descend without falling out of the sky. The landing gear drops down from underneath with a thump and a whir of motors. In fog, in rain, at night. A system called the Instrument Landing System guides the aircraft precisely along the correct path. Radio signals from the ground tell the autopilot exactly where the runway is and keep the plane perfectly aligned, even if the pilots can't see it yet. The last few hundred feet are the most critical. The plane descends at a rate of around 800 feet per minute. The runway comes up fast. And then, a gentle reduction in thrust, a slight nose-up movement, and the tires kiss the tarmac. That moment when the wheels touch down. If it's done well, You barely feel it. It's one of the most satisfying moments in aviation. The passengers often don't even notice until they hear the sound of the engines changing and the brakes beginning to work. The spoilers on the wings pop up. Flat panels that disrupt the airflow and destroy the remaining lift, pressing the plane down onto the runway. The thrust reversers on the engines open up, redirecting the thrust forward instead of back, helping to slow the aircraft. Within a minute or two, the aircraft that was traveling at nearly 900 kilometers per hour across the sky is trundling gently along a taxiway at walking pace. And somewhere up the front, the captain often picks up the intercom and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to." You know something? The Wright brothers' first flight was 120 years ago. In those 120 years, human beings went from 12 seconds in the air to flying to the moon, to launching spacecraft that have left the solar system entirely. But there's something I find particularly lovely about aeroplanes specifically. Every day, about 100,000 flights take off somewhere in the world. 100,000. And almost all of them land safely, on time, carrying people to the people they love or the places they've been dreaming about. It's one of the greatest things we've ever built, really. Not any single plane, but the whole system. The airports, the training, the air traffic control, the engineering, the fuel networks, all of it working together every single day to carry human beings through the sky. And it all started with two brothers on a windy beach with a machine made of wood and wire. Now then, you've been flying tonight. In your mind. You know how wings make lift. You know about the Wright brothers. You know about the underground tunnels under the world's biggest airports, and about why plane windows are oval, and about how the engines breathe for you at 35,000 feet. You know quite a lot, actually. It's late now. The planes in the sky above your house are heading somewhere. Someone is looking out of one of those tiny oval windows right now, watching the lights of towns and cities below, wondering what they all are. But you're down here, warm and comfortable and almost asleep. Let your eyes close. Let those thoughts drift off slowly, like a plane disappearing into the clouds. Good night. Sleep well.